an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering The Magicians, Season 4, Episode 9, The Serpent. In this episode, Alice helps the library, again, to do something that most of the library doesn't know about. We find out that there's a faction forming that's not a faction, actually, and the monster is apparently not doing what we all thought he was doing. Nothing is what we think it is. This episode is pretty much the summary. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Nicole for commissioning this episode. Austin, Huggabug, and Jesse are in the chat. Hello, you lovely people. This episode I just finished watching for the first time right before recording, and it is a particularly fun episode to jump right into recording afterwards. I really, really enjoyed this one. I have to tell you guys off the top, those of you who are in the patron group already know this, I posted on the Mighty Network that I had a dream that I slept with Josh. And it wasn't just a dream that I slept with Josh. It was a dream that I was like in a relationship with Josh. Like it was serious. And that made me feel so much more affectionate towards him this episode because the dream was very real. It felt like I feel with Owen in a way, like I really got to know him and was looking forward to seeing him, and like the kind of feelings that you get when you're first involved with somebody and you're like very excited and you're still wondering like, do they really like me that much? It was a full blown like dream relationship. So when I got to see him and Margo basically kiss and make up this episode, it's fucking makeup, I was delighted because I just felt like, oh, good. Things are finally where they're supposed to be again for these two, because I feel like Margo is my stand-in in the show at times. So let's start off with the fucking serpent. The episode begins with a video that has this like, it's got the vibe of like a hostage video, but it's a little bit too like well edited, and they are doing a sort of, I keep thinking of the Matrix and that creepy thing that they put in through his belly button, you know, but it's some kind of worm, and it goes into their ears. And when these people try and use magic to defend themselves after this thing has been infesting their body, it basically causes them to burn like spontaneous combustion. And if you try and remove it, they say that it will have the same effect. You just kind of have to take their word for it that they are telling the truth about trying to remove it. I'm not entirely sure that I buy that, but I really do understand why people wouldn't want to risk it, you know? So the way that this starts off is, and I'll be honest with you guys, I'm curious to hear if any of you guys hear where I'm coming from and felt the same way. When we start this scene, the guy says something like, "Listen up, Hedges, the library is throttling magic, and therefore we need to cull the herd because like we're all fighting for scraps. So stop doing magic. It's not for you." And of course, my immediate response is, Hedges doing this to other Hedges? No, I don't see it. This is a library. And sure enough, you find out at the end of the episode, it's the library. Was there ever any doubt? I mean, right? We have already seen that those in charge in the library are very much okay with Hedges dying. They don't care. I mean, I'm not saying everybody. We haven't met everybody, but we've seen a fair number, and none of them seem particularly concerned. And I don't know. I just felt like this was treated as this big reveal, and I really wasn't surprised at all. I'm sort of like, my idea here is that they knew it wasn't that much of a surprise. And so they decided to reveal within the same episode that it wasn't who we thought, because I'm assuming that they sort of knew we would figure that out or be suspicious. But yeah, it turns out that the person actually doing this is Everett, who is the person who was basically Zelda's savior. She calls him her mentor, but it's obvious that it was more than that, because he found her on the street and sort of rescued her. So she's deeply loyal to this guy. And her finding out that he is not only lying to her about something like this, but also capable of doing this. I mean, it's weird because I feel like the show wants me to be more invested in Zelda overall. And I don't really feel it for her. It's not that she's the woman who plays her is a good actress. Her character is interesting I guess that's really what it is in a way. I don't find her that interesting. She's too credulous. She's too willing to ignore the multitude of red flags around her and try and see the best in people, that in a way that I feel just doesn't make a lot of sense if you have the information that she does and if you have seen the things that she has seen. We also don't know still what went down between her and Harriet, really. It's just kind of a weird, I just want to care about Zelda the way the show clearly wants me to, and I'm not quite there. So, and also the fact that we don't find out about Everett being her mentor and their relationship or anything until this episode, where it is very promptly revealed he is the one doing this and that it's her mentor who's sort of betraying her. I wanted that to be set up better. I wanted there to be more time for us to see that this guy mattered to her and that she trusted him and that he was a figure in her life. We didn't know any of that. We just hear her tell Katie about it. And it's sort of strange to me. It's it reminds me of in The Walking Dead, where you knew a character was going to die because they had never really mattered, but all of a sudden the episode was telling you their life story. So it was a clear signal that they are trying to make this person three-dimensional all of a sudden so that you give a shit when they die. And that's what it felt like to me, was this really quickly shoehorned in backstory for her and Everett, so that it was a bit more of a gut punch when she finds out, but it doesn't feel like a gut punch to the audience. We just fucking, when she says Everett took me in, I'm not going to lie, I had no idea who that was. I didn't even realize that was somebody that we had met. I don't know if that was just me, but there are a lot of library characters whose names I don't know. There's that woman who speaks in this episode to support his assertion that everybody should get these tattoos. We've seen her a few times. I don't know her name. So when she says Everett took me in, I was genuinely I don't know who that is. I guess we'll find out. And we do they remind us by showing us who he is at the end, but it meant nothing to me in the moment. And I really would have appreciated a little bit more time spent on that. It's a tough thing because if you don't know you're going to make a character important ahead of time, setting up all of this stuff might be a little trickier. But, we're in episode 9 of this season? I would like to think that they had a general idea of the flow of the plot for the season overall. But I might be wrong about that. I don't know how much they make up as they go along. I know for different shows, it's different as well. But I just sort of look back and wonder if there weren't moments that we could have spent setting this up a little bit more and getting a little bit more of Zelda's backstory and her relationship with Everett so that this was a little bit more of a surprise. But, they made it pretty clear when he sort of treats it like, oh, really? These coins interfere with hedge magic? Well, maybe that's not a terrible thing. I mean, we saw this coming, right? So Jesse says, I think that's a common critique. The library/Zelda story is kind of rushed in this season. Yeah. Austin says, yeah, the Jewel State character. Is Jewel, that's the name of the other librarian woman with the amazing asymmetrical suit, by the way. Oh, beautiful. So that is from Firefly, says Austin. Do not remember her. But there's a lot about that show that I have forgotten. So yeah, this is meant to be like spreading fear, which it is. And he's really being aggressive. The mechanic. Oh, okay. She was the one with that dress. I remember now. But yeah, the spreading of fear is real. We find out later that an entire safe house got attacked and half of them died. So it's really turning into quite a situation pretty quickly. And we have Pete and Katie talking together about this. And basically, we find out from Alice, because she shows up in a moment, that Katie is being called the new Marina. And Pete is like, yeah, actually, people are calling you that in a good way. Because, you know, that's not exactly something that a lot of people would take as a compliment. I'm here for it. Katie as the new Marina is 100% something that I am interested in watching. I'm very excited about this. I really genuinely love Katie as a character and have wanted her to have more to do. And I haven't had a particular idea of what that looked like. But her sort of taking Marina's place in the scheme of things and being more, first of all, compassionate. Marina not being compassionate is genuinely funny. So I'm not saying that who she wasn't fun to watch, but it will be interesting to see what a person in Marina's position could accomplish if they decided to work with people instead of just being an absolute terror that everybody is afraid of. And, you know, she is pretty, guys, she pulls out this fucking crowbar and does this like amazing move with it. And when she opens the door and sees that it's Alice, she tries to slam the door in her face, but she still hears her out. And then after Alice explains where she's coming from, Katie is like, all right, you know what? I will listen to what you have to say, but also, and then punches her in the face. Reasonable. I'm fine with it. Honestly, Alice really does seem to get it, you know? Alice fucked up so deeply. You can't just expect people to completely forgive you out of the gate just because you're like, well, I'm sorry. Are you? Like, good? Also, so what? And I love that they kind of think that she is here initially, like in defense of the library. I don't think they realize the position that she was put in after all of that went down. But yeah, she says that she wants to help. Alice says, none of us went on that tour just to be slaves for the library to get a little magic. I want to fix it. And it's, you know, she's genuine about it. She decides that she is going to help at great risk to herself. So we wind up finding out about the other junction boxes and other pipes. Map the system, look for weak spots with the most magic. But they have to find a junction box. And she decides to leverage what's going on with Zelda to get that information. I'm not mad at Zelda giving them the information in exchange for her daughter. I'm 100% here for knowing that Zelda is willing to sacrifice information like that for the sake of her daughter, that she cares about her daughter that much, that this is a genuine affection she has, because like it's a real easy thing to say, oh, I care about somebody. But Zelda has been she has been pretty loyal to the library. I was going to say a zealot, but that's not exactly fair. And I really wasn't sure if she was somebody that would be willing to betray them for the sake of her kid. It's good to know. It's important information. That said, I'm really interested if she was willing to do that for her daughter. What will she be willing to do now that she knows what Everett has been doing? And what can she do is the other question. All the librarians are under contract. And I don't know about y'all, but I assume that contract is loaded with footnotes and shit that like can be suddenly called into it. Just what this makes me think of is when you sign something and you assume, because everybody before you has always been able to function in a certain way, that it's all on the up and up. But the moment that you try and do anything even slightly outside of the very strict parameters everyone else has always operated within, you find out that there is like a litany of shit that you agreed to that you never thought. And I really wonder what else was in that contract, because we didn't get a particularly good look at it when Penny signed it, you know? I don't know if that's something that's going to come up, but I'm a little concerned about it. So, okay. We have the meeting with the librarians, with Everett, with this woman in this amazing fucking suit. Oh, God, I love her the most. That suit and that, like, she's got this brooch and the pearl necklace. The whole look is just everything. I wish, guys, one of the main things that I miss about living in Philadelphia is working from home, but still wearing clothes like that and going for a walk and not like this, obviously, but being able to dress a little bit more like up. Just, you know, I could put on a lovely sundress and wedge heels and take a walk because there were plenty of sidewalks and people dress cute because they're in the city and there's a lot of people and it's just part of the thing. Out here, if I were to just try and take a walk in my wedges and a cute sundress, it would be real weird. Like, people would wonder what I was doing, just walking in a cute dress looking like I'm about to go somewhere. And it would also, there's no sidewalks around here. It would be genuinely probably a little dangerous for me to try and take a walk with all the gravel and everything. I look at clothes like this and I want them so bad. And then I have to remember that like life is different now. And it's just not the same as I can put it on in my own house and just be home, but it's not really like the same, you know? I miss it. I'm not going to lie. Anyway, tangent. So there's this thing called Reed's Mark, which basically will keep them from being able to use magic. And this is something that a lot of like they're talking about the worm triggering, like if people use magic, the worm will trigger and it will kill them. And she's explaining that like she uses magic without even thinking about it all the time to cast tons of little spells, and that people can say, okay, now I know not to use magic, but they may by accident and wind up dead. And probably a lot of people will agree to getting this tattoo so that they won't be able to accidentally fucking incinerate themselves. So yeah, this, the whole thing is it would be voluntary for those already infected and for those living in fear. And there's no paperwork, no questions asked, and it will be removed once the Serpent group has been dealt with, free of charge. All of this sounds great. It also sounds like a way to completely disarm everyone that you're threatened by. Again, it seemed pretty obvious. It seemed way too good-hearted on his part to give a shit about, like, these people who could potentially there were just a million red flags going off for me. I just felt like the fact that Zelda did not suspect what was happening here after the conversation they had, I was just not buying it, man. This seems, yeah. So anyway, enough about them. Let's talk about the whole deal with Harriet. They are setting up this really wild looking spell because like Harriet, they put the beacon thing, they did that spell last episode, and that was done by Alice and Zelda and her mother, Alice's mother. And thus Harriet shows up to each one of them in a mirror, and they get together, leverage the I will help you get your daughter out of the mirror world in exchange for information on the layout of the fucking pipes. And there is this really cool sort of crystal magnifying glass mirror contraption that Alice has to use in order to get this spell going. I thought this was a very neat, like, design. Visually, just, you know, it's the kind of, I think you guys are going to know what I mean when I try and say this. There are inventions in media, in movies, TV, that you look at and you're just like, oh yeah, I'm sure that works. You know what I mean? Like, there are some things that you see and you're like, that's supposed to do this? This is the thing? I mean, I guess. And this is the kind of thing that I saw it and was like, yes, I accept that what you are using this for is what this was designed for, and that is its function, and this works. It's just like, I found it to be very well done. And this begins to go wrong. It's a very frustrating scene because Harriet speaks in sign language and fucking Alice does not speak that. So she isn't able to understand any of Harriet's concerns. Harriet sticks her hand through the mirror and comes out of it, and it looks like, you know, we're well on our way. But then she starts looking around and we can see that she knows something is wrong and she's signaling to Alice, but Alice is so focused that she doesn't notice until Harriet yanks her out of the triangle and the whole fucking crystal begins to spark and get too bright. Alice she sees that like the ambient magic they have, because there's like a, you know, sort of a dial on the wall that measures it, is going down, and that they only have so much time to do this. And she argues with Harriet and goes back in there to do it. And she gets split up because of the way this thing goes haywire. And we get two Alices. We get scared Alice and arrogant Alice. Okay, so this is a thing that we see a lot, right? There's a lot of different times and books and TV shows and movies in which this sort of thing has been done. And it depends on somebody being a good actor to really get you to believe that this isn't just an actor who normally plays kind of a scared person having a really good time playing a not scared person for a change. And granted, even if it is just an actor having a good time, that's not always a bad thing. It can still be fun to watch. But you often feel like you're watching somebody just getting to ham it up in a way that they don't often, and it's a little indulgent. The woman who plays Alice, when she plays the arrogant version of herself, is so convincing and so flawless at it. I regret deeply the loss of her at the end of this episode. I want her around all the time, and I know that she's super dangerous, and I know, don't care. She is just so compelling every time that, like, especially in the conversation that she has with Alice through the little window in the prison door. The difference in their expressions and the way they hold themselves and the way they in the intonations in their sentences is even different because they each hold different value on certain words. All of it is just done so well. There is nothing about the way that she behaves as the arrogant version of herself that feels like it's too much of a joke. It's not a joke. It feels genuine. I really was just so impressed because when we first see that she's split in two, I'm not going to say that I was like, ugh, I wasn't, but I was kind of like, well, okay. Like just sort of that attitude that you get when you've seen something and you just sort of sit back and you go, okay, impress me, and they did. She did. So fucking well done, man. I especially love how Alice tries to say, you are an egomaniac. You only care about yourself. And you alienated them all with your arrogance. And she's like, oh, really? Yeah, I'm so smart. Look at me. She is her like fearful self talking. But arrogant Alice says, love me. I won't exist unless you love me. I'm so sorry. I'm smart. It's not you. It's me. I'm so sorry. Honestly, that makes a lot of sense. Like if you are exceptional, you are, and you feel like people resent it, you tamp it down and feel bad about it sometimes. And it's really understandable that Alice would see the part of herself that wants to show off a little bit, that wants to just do what she is able to do as being arrogance. But maybe there is some arrogance, and that's not a bad thing necessarily. But also, maybe you just want to like stretch your limbs and see what you're fully capable of. And I feel like it was in one of the very first episodes of this show where she does something kind of impressive and then says to Quentin that she has never really gotten to see what she's capable of because she has always held back, because she has felt like she makes other people uncomfortable. And, this is something like, I understand that, especially when her evil self says, maybe I'm just too much to live. I mean, as somebody who is told they are too much, and granted, when I'm told that, it's often as a compliment. People mean it in a good way when they say it. But I have experienced friends telling me that they weren't going to support me anymore because they felt I had done well enough. And they were kind of over seeing me succeed and win. These are not people that I'm friends with anymore. But it was when I was old enough for that to really sink in and have an effect. And I hid a little bit. And it's a shame. So I also loved Alice saying, you destroyed the keys because you're such a genius. And her evil self laughs and says, I didn't do that. You did. Arrogance didn't destroy the keys. Fear did. You did. Which is 1,000% how I read it at the time. And I love that the show makes an effort to distinguish between those two things. Like, sure, there is a bit of arrogance in thinking you know best for everyone and that they can't handle magic. But it's an arrogance that is rooted in a fear and mistrust. And yeah, makes sense. So I'm totally into this whole thing. Alice manages to finally embrace her other self. And they're walking out of this prison. I just love this so much. Guys, a book falls down from nowhere. And it says binder on the side. And it looks like a binder. And I made a joke last week about how I really wanted the binder to not be a person, but to be an actual Lisa Frank Trapper Keeper with like a dragon emblazoned on the front. And I almost got it. It was so close. I really love it. It's a binder. I'm really hoping that's like, I really want when they finally open it for there to be like a 3-ring. Guys, I'm here for stupid jokes like this. I really am. So they go and manage to succeed on their little mission and fix Harriet. Hopefully, it seems that way. And once they are finished, the camera pulls up and the other Alice is gone and they have been put back together again. So, yeah, it's pretty great. And then we have, Harriet telling her mother about what she saw because when she was in the mirror, she was able to like spy on people. I'm going to back up now and we're going to talk about Margo. So I'm really, really relieved that they didn't stretch out this whole thing with Fen for like 4 more episodes, because I kind of thought that's what we were doing. And that it was going to be this constant push-pull of Fen feeling like she needs to do this thing that some fucking random in a dream told her, and that she wouldn't want to, and she would fight it, but it would push her and gradually, I just thought this was going to be tedious. That's the word. Tedious. And instead, it is handled in such a way that was so surprising and really touching, honestly. And I loved it so much. So, we start off with Josh telling Margo that Eliot is actually alive because they got this rabbit notification. And I adore this. She is so elated at the fact that Eliot is still alive. It's sort of like the dam breaks. Like she was just trying to hold herself together so hard because she thought he was gone. And the news that he might be retrievable is more than she can handle. And she just like jumps on Josh and begins to have sex with him, like right out in the middle of them, like planning this whole party and everything. It is the best. And there's a whole thing that he says about like time getting screwed up. He says, let's see, a wild Philorian clock tree has sprouted up, leaving a village stuck in time. It's been a total clocksterfuck. Josh, stop it. With the ambient being so low, that's the latest on the magical weirdness list, which is getting long. So he has called the council, and he says that he has planned a state dinner so that everybody can talk about this to solve the problem. And this is when Margo jumps him. Fen leaves. And then he begins telling Margo after that he has called the Foremost, which is the like leader of a nomadic tribe, an ice tribe, I think. And she doesn't understand why this should be relevant, but he explains that the Foremost is able to expel possession with like a specific tool that he has of some kind, and ice axes. He believes that this person might be able to save Eliot. I love it when she says, "Keep it up, Josh." Oh, double entendre. I'm going to get dressed for the banquet. Oh, guys, Margo in this outfit, I love it so much. She's wearing this like green floaty sort of thing. It's much softer than what we have seen her in before. I feel like they're doing this on purpose because she's like acting a little bit more vulnerable with Josh because she genuinely likes him. So they're putting her in clothing that's a bit more free flowing and less angular. They had her in a lot of asymmetrical, extremely angular, like 90-degree or even like 70-degree corners sticking off of shoulders and things like that. And this outfit is something that's much more bohemian looking in its way. And she rocks this look so hard. And also getting to see Margo be a little bit softer is really nice. Like, I don't need a ton of it. I just need to know that it can happen. I need to know that she's capable of it. It's reassuring. I sometimes feel that this actress can err on being too sort of like strident with the way that she plays Margo so that it feels false. And the moments where she kind of is being a combo of aggressive but also like affectionate with Josh feel much more like a real person to me. Margo, granted, is meant to be like a larger than life character, but she has been kind of one note at times, you know? So I'm really happy to see this development. It's something that I think she kind of needed to give her that extra dimension. And even if things don't wind up working out with her and Josh and they're not like, you know, actually together for any extended time, knowing that this is something hidden in her personality is nice to know. So yeah, the two of them, it's a fun time. So then we have Fen, who is approached by the leader of Loria, I think, West Loria, who tells her that she was also visited by this like dream creature and that they told her they need to assist Fen and depose Margo. And Josh overhears this whole thing and goes and tells Margo right away, which, thank God, you know, like, granted, he doesn't have the full story about like exactly what is going on here. He did overhear Fen protest that she doesn't really want to do this. And this woman pretty much tells Fen, you are going to do this or we're going to kill you too. It's Fen is, she is doing this under protest, you know? I don't know that he conveys that adequately to Margo. He pretty much just tells Margo she's planning to depose you. But I'm glad that he overhears that Fen hesitates and is being threatened herself. So we go to the state dinner, which it's so funny whenever they have in like the Felorian throne room, whenever they have parties, they always seem so sedate and just kind of like there's not that many people. There's not that much like, it's just a weird sort of atmosphere every time. And I can't put my finger on what it is. But yeah, Margo is like trying to find a way around this and, you know, put Fen off long enough that she can get in touch with the Foremost and find out about his, you know, acts that can help her save Eliot. So she goes and grabs Tick and has him stand in front of her so that Fen can't see her. And she asks him where the Foremost is. And he's sort of like, he doesn't get it. He's joking around about how he's in the South and he would never come to a thing like this, not realizing that the Foremost has even been invited. Once he realizes that the dude was invited and she expected him to be here, he then understands that now he has to produce results. She was expecting a thing. She didn't get it. She's asking you and you're treating it like a fucking joke. They very much could have executed you quite recently. Maybe you should make it up to her somehow. So I love this. The foremost is a sworn enemy of Fillory and will not interact with her citizens, much less High King. And she starts to say this whole thing was for him and interrupts herself. And she's like, okay, I need him though for Eliot. And he says, okay, I see. How can I assist? Would you like me to travel to the south and use false Lorien papers to seek an audience? I love that he says this as if it's a possibility, but then immediately launch it. The Pickwicks are notoriously thirsty people, making them ill-suited to the desert. He's a Pickwick. I have a violent allergy to the sand. And of course, I'm not a magician, but if it helps, it would be an honor. Oh my God. I love Tick, and I'm so glad they didn't execute him. I really need him in this show to be this guy. He is so fucking amusing. I just love him. And he delivers these lines in a way that, like, I don't know if it would have been as funny if other, you know what I mean? His timing is just really good. So she says, I get it. It has to be a tough bitch. So it has to be me. And I didn't get what she was about to do here. Did you guys see this coming? It makes complete sense. We aren't really given a ton of time to think it over, but I just didn't see it coming. So we see Fen asking Josh where Margo is, and her poor, like, she has no poker face at all. And he asks her, like, why are you looking for her? Oh, no reason. Nothing. I have to go sneeze. And wanders away. Margo goes right up to Fen and says, do it. And Fen says, excuse me? Do it, Fen. And she has tears pouring out of her eyes. And I was like, oh no. Like, all of a sudden I just realized, and I was like, oh, of course, but I hate it. It was just like one of those moments of like, fuck. Oh, I'm an idiot. Of course, this is what she's doing. The whole way this goes down and the acting between the two of them. Overthrow me right the fuck now, Fen, or I will never forgive you. And you can see Fen getting very emotional as well. And they're like holding eye contact, and they are respecting the hell out of one another as Margo is sacrificing herself, and kind of Fen is sacrificing herself a little too. She doesn't want to do this. You know, like, yeah, granted, she's being made High King in Margo's place, which many people would see as like a major perk for her. But Fen doesn't really want this job. I'm not saying she won't be good at it. I honestly think she will. She knows Fillory. She should have this job. A fucking person from Earth should not. But she is sacrificing part of herself to do this. And it's awful. And I love when Margo says, I will never forgive you, and neither will Eliot if you don't allow me to go and find the one thing that can save him. And I don't know that Fen understands exactly what's happening right here. I don't think she gets what Margo's doing, but she doesn't ask any questions. She sort of like just decides that she is going to take Margo at her word and do what needs to be done. And she says, I need a word with the guard. And she walks away, and both of them just have like tears pouring down their faces. And it's honestly just like, it's just really good shit. I love these two women being set at odds against one another, and still each of them doing like the responsible, selfless thing really with grace, and it being super painful for both of them in very different ways. And nevertheless, you know, and like it winds up being literally painful. Fucking Margo gets these like brands on her wrists as when she gets banished. Fucking brutal. Yikes. But yeah, she is forever banished, never again to set foot on the soil of Fillory, never again to breathe its air or feel its magic. I love Margo. Oh, God, get on with it. Amen, sister. I was just like, are we going to do this all? Like, I really thought there was going to be more to this. And I was so glad that she's just like, shut up. Fuck. Yes, correct. So yeah, he has to brand her with these X's on her wrists. Like, oh, God. She says, son of a pig fucker. And he says, perfect words to remember you by. And the look she gives him, like, I think, like, we get what he means by that. But it could easily be seen as extremely insulting. And they drag her out. She says, I curse Fen's name because she, like, has to, right? But if I were you, I'd listen to her and wait. Be nice to her. Your grandkids will fear me. Oh, Margo, why are you so excellent? That is just the best. Be nice to her. Listen to what she says. Also, fuck her. And I hate all of your kids. I will be a fucking terror to them. Ah, the best. The best. So then we have her being led out. She's going to be escorted, I assume, out of Fillory by these two guards. And she gets stopped by Josh on her way out. And he has a variety of danishes that he has made for her. Guys, look, I accept wholly that out of me and Owen, I'm the one that can cook. Owen can make a macaroni and cheese out of a box. Kind of. He can manage it. It's not great. But I would be lying if I said I didn't wish a little bit that he could surprise me with homemade danishes. That'd be great. Tiny bit wanting that little bit of Josh from my dream to just be a real thing. Just saying. Because, yes, I could make danishes myself. I could make fantastic danishes, better than any I've ever had anywhere, probably. I don't want to do it. Somebody else do it. Fuck. You know? Like, God. The work. The time. And when you bake something that takes that long, because it's like days, because you have to fucking laminate that dough over and over, by the time you bake it, you don't even want it anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're just over it. It's like cooking Thanksgiving dinner, and if you're the one in charge of cooking, and then you sit down and you just realize you're not hungry because you've been like tasting everything all day. Yeah. So anyway, she tells him to please help Fen, that he can't come with her. He gives her these danishes, and he also has an iPod loaded with music. Oh, and a new map. I forgot about that whole thing. And yeah, they have this like really sweet moment where she says he's a good man, and he kisses her, and then she says, I love this, I'm going to try and live through this because it's feeling like we got some more banging to do. And he just says, it does, right? With this like complete sincerity. And she says, but don't wait for me. And he's like, yeah, no, totally. But probably going to wait for you though. So, and it's just great, this whole thing. And then he puts the earbuds in her ears, and it's that song. I'm pretty sure, I'm trying to think what movie this was in. Because it makes me think of the end of Working Girl, but I'm pretty sure that's a different song. But it's, we belong to the light, we belong to the darkness, we belong. Great fucking song. Great walkout song. Love this song. I am delighted with all of everything that happened in Fillory this episode. It made me so happy. Fillory is kind of the weak spot for the show right now. What's going on Earth has been so compelling that every time we go to Fillory, I'm kind of like, oh, right. You know, like, it's not that I hate it. It's just this fucking monster is really scary, and I want to see what's going on with that. And he's over on Earth, and let's stick with that. But this episode really brought it together for me. I am here for it, you know. I think also part of what I don't love about Fillory is that it's where the show gets really like cutesy, whimsical / referential with making a lot of like jokes that I get what they're trying to do, but it doesn't always land for me. So I think that's part of what doesn't always work. But yeah, so she walks out of there and Fen is now king, and I have no idea what happens next. Then let's go to what's going on with Quentin and Penny and Julia and the monster. First of all, I have said a couple of times that everybody looks better this season. I stand by that. I meant to bring it up again with Katie. Like, her lip color. I need to know what they're doing. I need to know. I got to figure it out. But Penny looks better. I think they changed his hair. I think they cut it closer because it had been in this style that is really meant for like if you have fuller, younger hair. And he can't pull that off. Bless him. But he's losing his hair, man. You know, it happens. And I feel like cutting it was a really smart move to just make him look a little bit more mature and less douchey. So there have been a lot of times where I've been like, I don't get his appeal. But this was like the first episode that I really started to be like, all right, you know what? Penny could get it. Yes, I see it. I get it now. And so it worked out. I was thinking that already. And then this is the episode in which him and Julia basically like agree to try things out if they get through this. And it really, the timing was excellent because I was like very on board with it by the time they got around to it. I love that. I think Quentin is trying to like heat up a quesadilla or something that he drops. I've said also Quentin looks better this season. They cut his hair as well. He looks so much better with this hair like this, man. Pfft, Quentin could get it too. I'm just going to say it. Everybody looks better this season. So the monster says that he can feel how many pieces are missing and that it's only one. And then he says that they better fucking help him or he is going to go ice cave exploring naked and let himself freeze to death. So he's like watching the TV and he sees something about a psychic talking about past lives and suppressed memories. And this gives him the idea to go and find a psychic. Apparently he has to go through like, I think he says 19. Yeah, 19 before he even finds a real one. And even when he finds a real one, the dude can't handle what this kid is trying to do. He's a fucking like godling kind of being. It's too much. The fucking guy is killed by it. It's awful to watch too, like, because you don't know what's really happening. It just sort of looks like he's having an aneurysm, you know? It's just awful. Austin says, see, I love that. I would love if the show was just them trying to deal with this weird Narnia/Oz hybrid. Now, see, that's the thing, I think, Austin, is that if the show was just that, I think it would work better for me because it would be embedded in little bits and spurts within an overall story. But dealing with Fillory the way that we do, where it's part of a story that also takes place on Earth, it feels like every time you go to Fillory, they feel the need to make another fucking joke that it just feels really self-indulgent, and it's often not as funny as I think they think it is, you know? Maybe that's just me, but a lot of the kinds of like jokes they make are either a little bit obvious or just vulgar in a way. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with vulgarity in general, but sometimes it feels real lowest common denominator in which I'm just like, oh, I guess fine. Like, you know what I mean? Just like, but anyway, because normally I was so into the Narnia books. I mean, obsessed. So almost every reference that they make, I know what they're doing in the show. And I really do enjoy that aspect of it. And also dunking on how ridiculous a lot of the Narnia books are. But it doesn't always ring funny for me, I guess. Anyway, so yeah. Penny finally volunteers himself because he realizes that this dude is just going to keep on fucking going after psychics and killing them unless he volunteers himself and tries to get through it. And hand to God, I 1000% forgot Penny's psychic. 100,000%. When he raises his hand, he's like, I'm a psychic. I was like, you're what now? What? And then I had to stop and take a step back and be like, oh, right. Like, completely slipped my mind, y'all. It's just been so long since we've had to deal with that, So he does the thing. It's very clearly a huge risk. They go into this thing's memory. Again, with the actor playing Eliot being really fucking good. Shit. He is so good in this scene. He is really able to play somebody who's almost hypnotized. Like, in this scene, he's trying to remember, and it's like we can see what it is he's remembering. We are where he's trying to remember, but he's also acting like he can't quite see it, like it's in his head. It's just really, really well done. So there's an altar, bowls. There's rocks in the bowls that are meant to be filled with like the parts of him that aren't yet. They're empty right now. There is a girl on the altar who's nearly dead. She's dying. And this dude shows up. Elisaiah? I'm forgetting his name. Something like that. And they apparently need to figure out how to summon him in the present in order to get this last piece. And it looks like a half-dead girl is going to be the way to do that. And I'm not super excited about that. But yeah, he's kind of gross. Like, he's got this predatory, he's got a look to him that is very similar to the dude who gets taken over by Reynard. He's got like a very similarly shaped face and the same like kind of 11 o'clock shadow, like a beard that's just so short. It's not even quite a beard. I do not care for him is what I'm saying. And this dude is he's like a god of war. And yet the monster's pointing out he likes them when they're too weak to fight. He does not. Elias. I was so close. Eliot does not like this god and gets increasingly more enraged as he goes through this memory. He calls him a sad, perverse little, and then he stops and says, why is this making me so upset? And Penny says, maybe there's more here. We see Elias picking up what looks like a scythe. It's a knife with a very long handle. And as the monster is continuing to try and pierce this memory, Penny spots a door behind him and goes off into the door. I honestly, guys, again, there are so many things this episode that I'm like, I didn't expect it. I should have, but I didn't. I'm seeing the door and I'm like, what's that about? And then he walks through and he's fucking in Eliot's head. And I was like, right. Oh, of course. I forgot. So he walks into the fucking physical cottage. It's proper Eliot sitting there, and he is super excited because he was trying to get Penny to see the door. He says, we don't have a lot of time, and I have some extremely major shit to tell you. We jump out of there, and I gotta say, I thought they were going to have been interrupted before Penny gets the information. I thought once Penny comes back, he'd be like, he almost told me something really important and I have to get back in there and find it out because it was obviously going to be crucial and I don't know what it is, but he didn't have a chance to tell me. And I thought we were going to have a whole thing where Penny needs to risk it all again and go back into his brain, which may still happen. But it turns out, no, it cuts away because he tells Penny and we're not meant to know yet. So he goes and, we see the monster. And he is saying, maybe there's more. Maybe there's more. And then he begins to try and talk to Penny, who he keeps calling Percy, by the way, which is hilarious. And then he notices that Penny's gone and Penny has to run out there, and he gets very aggressive. Penny tries to tell him he was exploring, and the monster clearly doesn't quite believe him. He asks, "What did you see?" Penny is a pretty good liar. He doesn't act nervous. He just says nothing. There's nothing else here, in a very uninterested sort of way. And the monster grabs his face and says, "If you're lying to me, I will have you flayed." And in the present, Penny, whose nose had started bleeding when he went through that door, begins to go down. And he finally comes back to himself. But it takes long enough that they aren't even sure he's going to make it. And I would have said I was sure he was going to be fine. And I was pretty sure. But they have sent one Penny to the underworld already. It's not unheard of. I could see him, I could see him dying after all, and there being 2 Pennies in the underworld, and that being a little confusing. Meanwhile, the monster, completely unconcerned, of course, about Penny, is having this totally inappropriate, smiley face, tell him I said thanks. I know just who to find exactly to fit Elias's taste. And he's smiling and happy in a way that we rarely ever see. And it's so weird to see him standing over Penny's fucking body in a way that's just so detached, We're going to find him and we're going to make me whole again. This is a great day. And then he disappears. Oh God, his acting. He really is quite good. So I didn't really talk about the scene between Katie and Zelda. I feel like I covered most of that though, so I'm fine with that. And we, at the end of the episode, we have Quentin and Julia, and they are discussing what they are going to do to try and save Penny, because he's still on the floor over there. Oh, I forgot to mention that Pete gets got. Somebody puts a worm in his ear, so poor Pete can't do magic anymore. But yeah, they're sitting there trying to figure out, we need to do something. We can't just sit here waiting for him to die. And then all of a sudden the doors open and he comes walking out, and he is not in amazing shape, but he is still alive and he's still okay. And he says that he saw Eliot in there. He's alive and poking around like a pro. The monster, everything he can't remember, it's all in there. Eliot saw something in the monster's memories, buried. We've been wrong about everything. He's not trying to rebuild his body. That's not what the stones are. That's not what they're for. It's so much worse than that. And then the episode ends and leaves me sitting there going, are you serious? I have no theories. I tried to I got nothing. No idea. No idea. But yeah, I really like this twist that it was already going to be pretty bad. We don't want the monster to get his body back and be, but the fact that it's going to be worse than that. Also, the idea that Eliot is trapped, but able to poke around and see things the monster himself can't even see is genius. I love that idea. It makes a lot of sense, but it didn't occur to me. And I think that's a really cool, it's a really nice way to get around the monster not being able to know what our friends know, so that they're able to do something that he's unaware of. How would they get this information that's only in his memories without him knowing? There it is. It makes a lot of sense. So, all right, I'm going to wrap up. I'm over time, but thank you guys again so much for coming and hanging out with me. Thank you to Nicole for commissioning this episode. And yeah, I'll be seeing y'all again soon. Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.